Hello and welcome to the B&B Show. My name is Brandon Kane, of course, and that guy over here, my cohort, partner in crime, is Brendan Nelson, Seahawks. Brendan Nelson back in the house today, starting officially beginning here our draft coverage. Brendan, how goes it?
It is going, man. This is one of the most fun times of the year to be running this channel. It's a lot of work. You put a lot into it. Not everybody gets as engaged into it as everybody else, but this is where you really have to crank the lever to make the sausage. And I'm down with it. Even in a draft class like this, there's still sausage to be made.
There is indeed. It's not always a pretty process, but it's what comes out the other end of that counts most, and it's delicious. And this draft is one which me and Brendan have both been simpatico on seeing it as being one that doesn't necessarily overflowing with talent at the seams. That you're not necessarily going to find your all pros. Me and Brendan were talking about this just before the start of the show, and then this may not be the year that you're going to be able to go get Nicky Manwari at the top of a second round and find not only instantaneous impact but difference making impact. And it does sound like, as we talked about that before the show, Brendan, that you're in a little bit of the same place. We're going to go in the running backs here, but that this is a draft that maybe you're also aligned with me on that. Okay, there's maybe not as much ceiling or star power, but there is some solidity on some of the floor that you can get at the positions in this one.
I'm sure there are good players that you can get in this draft. Absolutely. And that is one thing that I'm finding as I'm going through this. There is some potential here. And NFL roster is made up of 53 players. There are definitely guys in this draft that you can get that belong on a 53-man roster of a team that can win the Super Bowl. I have no doubt about that. And there are going to be guys that can be starters. There are guys that can even be really good starters. I do think you have to curb your enthusiasm just a little bit here, but at the same time, it's the job of a good GM to be able to sift through all that and find the stuff that is actually worth having. So I'm on board with it.
Definitely going to have your mettle proven in this draft from a general manager perspective, to your point, because it isn't going to necessarily be just easy for you, where it's no brainer picks going down the line, especially as even you get into the start of day two on this one. And we are going to be looking at today, folks, some specific positions in this draft and eliminating other positions as we go more positional by this. We've done this for a few years now, and so we're kind of trying to refine the process a bit. And we're going to really look into these positions that we know Seattle is going to target. It's not that Seattle's going to reach for need. I think they're going to still stay heartily in the value-based system. But me and Brendan really want to, kind of eliminate stuff that we know they're not going to go after. So, for instance, right now, what are we? Are we up to 5 deep on tight ends now after Brady Russell, Brendan? Are we 5 or 6?
Effectively. We're definitely not looking at tight end. I think we can all agree there. We are still a little ways away from having to worry about extending AJ Barner or extending Elijah Arroyo. So we're good. We're not really thinking about quarterback. We got too many quarterbacks as is. Some people would argue 3 quarterbacks might be one too many. Wide receiver, especially with yesterday signing Cody White, hard to really imagine this team prioritizing that. And honestly, with the possible exception of right guard, offensive line actually feels solidified now too, because you've got Josh Jones back. So I look at this offense and I'm like, there's a couple of things that you need to look at, but not really a lot. And I'm not saying it's the most stacked offense in the world, but what I'm saying is that for the most part, the die is cast.
It does feel like that. And so we're going to try to be more scalpel-like in our approach rather than hatchet-like, and where we're going to look to these positional groups. And it starts today with a position that you did sign Emmanuel Wilson to remove the necessity off the table, that you don't have to go and pick early at a position on this one. But it would be very hard for us to see at this point, Brendan, not walking out of this draft with at least one running back, and one probably likely taken pretty early.
Yeah, I think it would be, and I hate to talk like this because I know that it sounds like you're drafting for need at this point, but I do think that it would be a failure if you go into the season with the current running back crew as your guys. And by that, I mean you go with Wilson, Halani, and Kenny McIntosh, who for all we know will never play football again, and Cam Akers, and you can't tell me that a Shanahan style offense is going to have success with that crew. You can't. Like, I appreciate Emmanuel Wilson. I think he's probably a pretty good player, but we have no proof that he can take on high volume in an offense. Halani has like what 100 career yards from scrimmage. I think you've got to come out of this draft with something pretty serious if you want to have a serious offense in 2026.
I do indeed think you do need to add more onto this, of course, and it's not to, like you say, go to the need point, but it's that you are going to need to try to target to upgrade this thing just a little bit. I did think it was interesting in the name of kind of doing some research and preparation and overview status for this show, Brendan, that I went back last night and from 2007 onwards, not only just to get, recent sample size data, but try to get a good almost 20-year trek of time period and looking at the Super Bowl winners. And the Super Bowl winners that had essentially not top 3, not top 5, top 10 running back at the position by yards throughout the course of the regular season. There was that I was able to find, Brendan, that actually had one of those backs on their roster that was a Super Bowl winning team?
How many?
3. 3 of the last 20 when going through and doing that research. So it is a position that you need to pay attention to here, would be my point. But we come back around to why Seattle was a little bit more willing to not necessarily pay Walker in this situation and understand that historically speaking, you can get by with more of a rotation. But as me and Brendan are talking about, we need to add still more quality to the rotation. It doesn't mean that you get by on the dregs or guys coming off injuries or just roll the dice through the total of the number. You got to go to more of the, hey, we do need some guys actually that can separate. Seattle's recognized this in the past. So with that said, Brendan, let's start jumping into this. And one of the fun parts of this, I think, for coming off the rip on this one is that we've got one true first round running back, one guy that's a no-brainer for a lot of people's perspective. First, are you on that same line as far as others are on Jeremiah Love being the no-brainer, absolutely a first round pick, and not only a first round pick, but should be a top 5 first round pick?
I'd put him in my top 10. I don't think he's as good as some of the other recent top running backs, guys like Bijan, guys like Genty. I think it's Genty, by the way. Somebody corrected me on that recently. But yeah, he should be a top 10 pick in this draft and possibly a top 5 pick. I don't think he's generational, but there's a lot to love with him, obviously. I think that there is an immense amount of speed. He's got burst. He actually produced in college. This is not somebody where you're just like betting on the traits. He actually produced a lot in college. He runs good routes. You can line him up as a receiver. He can run routes out of the backfield. He's not just a check down guy. Good, doesn't fumble, good ball security. So he is a complete back. Absolutely. Maybe not. Maybe he's not a stellar power back. Maybe he's not the most agile guy in the world, but yeah, I would say that he's definitely worthy of being a top 10 pick. And I'm not, I got the question during free agency week when I was streaming for 40 hours. I got the question a lot. Do you think the Seahawks should trade up for Jeremiah Love? And my response has always been that's not going to happen. You'd have to probably get up to like number 4, number 5 to do that. And that's just not on the table.
Yeah, let's unpack that one in a sec real quick. I think that I am aligned with you and that I really do like his talent. He is a guy that I'm a little slow to get into that top 10 phase from my standpoint of it. I was surprised to see him running the 4.36. I anticipated the 1.55 10-yard split exactly. Like I had that in my notes right off the jump before he got to the combine, and that's the time that he posted. But I didn't think that I saw 4.36 on the tape. Did you see that type of speed, or did it feel a little bit more to you on the tape? 4.4, a little more closer to 4.5-ish to me on what I saw from that.
I mean, maybe 4.4. I wouldn't say 4.5. I felt like he's pretty fast on tape. Maybe 4.36 is pushing it a little bit, but I wouldn't say 4.5. 4.5 to me is very at that point you're closer to Chris Carson than you are to like Chris Carson was 4.6. So
yeah, it's probably an overstatement. It's more that middle ground, I guess, between the 4.4 and 4.5-ish. 4.44 or 5 or whatever that be. It feels more akin to that than the 4 into the 4.3-ish range, where those kind of running backs tend to have that like, whoa, that's a pretty crazy burst you can just feel on tape, which I didn't quite feel. And I have him now as a first round running back. I just didn't quite have him up into that element. You bring up the part about trading up and being a no. So I guess first off, is it the cost that makes you say no? Is it the positional value that makes you say no? Or is there a reason in particular that makes you say no?
Well, I just think about how much it would cost. And yeah, I blanch at that. And I don't know if I would be willing to trade up into the top 5 of a draft to get a running back pretty much ever. If it's got to be a little bit better than this. It's got to be Bijan Robinson. It's got to be Marshall Faulk. It's got to be somebody of that level, and I don't see that here. So I don't want to say I would never do it for a running back, but I don't think I would, and I would not do it for this one.
Yeah, well, I know it's not terribly exciting, folks, but I find myself in exactly the same opinion of Brendan on this one, where I just don't quite feel from him that same element of some of those backs of the past that he just mentioned, that you would be, if it was an Adrian Peterson-like talent up there, that you'd be like, okay, for that guy, am I going to do the 3 first-round picks? Because let's face it, Brendan, that's probably going to be the cost if you're going to want to move up and go get Jeremiah Love. And you're right.
Yeah.
Got to go up to probably 4. Tennessee's probably the bare minimum. You're going to have to jump up to, and that's going to be 3 first-round picks at this point, is it not?
I would suspect so, yes, especially in a draft like this where the blue chippers are so few and far between, that if you're a team with a pick that high, there's got to be a big part of you that is just like, just get the blue chipper and get out of here.
Yeah, I would think so. And this is few of them that exist. You got about a little 2-stack, 3-stack in this draft, Brendan, but he's a fun back. He's got a lot of stuff he does. Boy, he spams that spin move, doesn't he? He's tapping that spin move like 24/7, but he is effective with this. He can do it in the open field. He can do it to kind of get out of a tackle that he's in the midst of. He is a very fun player to watch on tape, and he's got a lot of ability out of the backfield as a pass catcher too. So he'll help out Tennessee. I think that tends to be the spot that seems to be the open secret in the league right now. Brendan is that he's probably going to Tennessee at this point.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. I'd put him in the top 10 of this draft. I'm not sure about top 5. I'm gonna have to like really think about that. I'm not quite there yet, personally.
Yeah. I don't think he should, but I think you mentioned point the blue chip talent. There's so few. He's one that stands out that's near close enough too that you go, okay, I have to risk all these other guys if I pick them, and then I'm overdrafting this guy here or this guy there. This guy at least get a take, and I know what I'm getting, walking in the door, and maybe I could even have some upside on top of that. Uh-huh. All right, let's talk about the guy that is kind of been the flavor of the moment this week, Brendan. I think he was mocked, and somebody's mocked to Seattle this past week. He's a guy that has kind of grown with some acclaim amongst the Seahawks fan base, and that is going to be Jadarian Price, the running mate of Jeremiah Love, who is probably likely to be the next running back taken after Love in this draft. 5'11", 210. Ran a 4.49 40-yard dash. So into that same territory I thought sort of Love would be at 210 pounds. So Love actually he looks like on tape he's bigger than Love, but he's actually 5 pounds lighter than Love.
The combine he weighed in at 203. So maybe he's been on maybe he's been on that Atkins or something. I don't know.
Well, I think that's that thing those guys do, I think, Brendan, where they try to get as light as they possibly can getting into the combine to lower down that 40 as much as possible. Because you lose 5 pounds, you lose 10 pounds, you're going to be faster. You will.
Yeah, and good for him. I would have thought that he would have hit the bar pretty hard after Notre Dame didn't make the playoff. He apparently let that fuel his desire to drop some pounds.
I guess so. He was pretty. There wasn't a lot of like bad weight on him on his, on the tape with them. But I would have also saw looking at him. He looks 220ish on tape almost. So for him to be down to 203 was kind of surprising to me. I'm struggling with this guy a little bit, Brendan. I'm like I like him. People are really elevating him at this point. Talk of him going to us at 32. Do you want to unpackage him as a player to me of what you saw, and then where you kind of find yourself at with him?
Well, here's what I got. He's got decent elusiveness and agility in open space. He can reliably cut up field at the right time. I like his vision. I like his patience as a back. I think he's a pretty good improviser. Not that we care about this, but I do think he's also potentially going to be good on kickoffs. I think he's going to offer some value as a kickoff returner. But here's what I wrote in the negatives. Doesn't really offer much on third down. I don't see anything there in terms of blocking or receiving. I think he has, let me see here. Yeah, 10 combined catches over the last 2 seasons. So he's not really a third down guy. Not really somebody who's going to survive contact. He's not going to, he kind of crumples. I don't see upper level talent overall here. Like to me, the 4.49, 161, that's, I mean, the 161 is actually well below average for a running back, by the way. That's a troubling territory here. I think he's got some fumbles in his ledger as well. I think he's a little bit of a fumbler, and he's already gotten hurt, one serious injury in his collegiate career. So that's at least a little bit of a concern here. So I'm thinking about him, and I'm like, he's an okay fit for an outside zone scheme, but I don't think he's a great fit. He doesn't have that kind of speed. He doesn't have that kind of quickness. I think he'll be a valuable player, but I I know some people are talking about taking him at 32, but that really feels like you're shoving a square peg into a round hole here, because that's what you need. I look at Jadarian Price and I'm like very reluctantly okay with him at 64, and very reluctantly. There are some things to like, but I don't view this as a perfect fit either. So it's not even like, oh, I can overlook the flaws because I think he'll be really good in outside zone. I think he'll be okay in outside zone.
Yeah, I feel the same way. That 161 stands out to you because you do feel this on tape to it, where the quickness is not necessarily there on the tape in that way. And this is a fundamental part of the outside zone system. I need to go from here to the outside. I need my back to get from here to the outside. I need him to get there as quick as possible, because so much of the blocking structure is timing based. The back's got to hit here when the blocks hit right there. And if you have a back that's a little slow to get there before, as the blocks are landing on their time, then the blocks, then you'll see the guy slide off the blocks and get onto the back, and the play gets disrupted. And it looks like the offensive line at that point is losing their blocks, but a lot of times it's actually that you just don't have the back quick enough to get to the spot. The thing that this guy does bring is the big playability. Almost 50 runs of 10 yards or more this last season. So, I mean, he's a big play machine. That part you're needing in this offense with Walker out down, that part's for sure. But I do come back to just, I think the speed's not quite enough there, especially the burst. As much of the speed, that burst is a very important part of this offense, and you don't see it. And then I don't see enough of other specialized skills that he has beyond that. Good vision, able to read his blocks really well, but he's not really a pure tackle breaker per se. There's some contact balance, there's some power, but it's not any element that's, some devastating part of what he brings, especially as you talked about going for him at 32 there. And even I'm kind of in that same place of, it still sort of makes I feel even reluctant there at the 64, but you can be around at least the right value at that point, especially when you consider you're picking at the end of the second round. But this was a struggle for me on on warming up to him. I was slow with Price on getting quite warmed up to him. He's a little leggy on tape too. It's a little floppy leggy. We got a couple of floppy leggy guys here in this draft, but I'm in the same kind of place you are.
Yeah. I know some people are talking about him as a first rounder, like the 32nd pick, but if we did that, I wouldn't be mad, but I would definitely feel like we kind of forced it, and I'd be annoyed, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to put it. It just would feel like you forced it, and it feels like you'd be reaching for need. And why we'd be dismayed by this, of course, is because the last 3 years, John has done such a great job of staying really just, hard-lined into, I'm going to draft for value in day 1 and day 2. And that's what helped to build the Super Bowl roster. Not reaching for need, but reaching for value. And so when you think about your first pick in a draft where you don't have a lot of selections being a reach for need from our perspective on this one a little bit, it does get a little hard to swallow that one, Brendan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't see it. But second round, if he's there somehow, okay, I can get on board with that.
I possibly could too. I get it there at that point, again, pick at the end of the round, but it is one that is not quite, you're looking for the great fits as much as just the talents here. And this one isn't as much the great fit, it feels like, to the system. 203 pounds. You'd like to get guys probably more that low 4.4s, even into the 4.3-ish, and then they can carry a little bit of 210, 215, maybe even up to 220. I think the system would like that ideally, and not quite there. Next guy up here on the list is another guy that's really gaining a lot of acclaim here among Seahawks fans recently, and that's Mike Washington Jr. He was the running back that really kind of blew up the combine in so many ways. 6'2", 223, so he's got the size. 4.33 40-yard dash, a 1.51 10-yard split. We're talking about one fast 10-yard split. We just came off the 1.61. How about a 1.51? Then he jumped 39 inches, almost 11 feet on the broad jump. Mike Washington Jr., a very interesting running back talent here, isn't he, Brendan?
He, I believe, has the longest arms of any running back to ever go through the combine, according to my research.
Wow. What was his arms at? I didn't see what his arms were at.
33 and 5/8 inches.
Wow. Jeez.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got some meat hooks.
Take that as you will. I'm not saying that's a big thing, but it's a little harder to fumble when you have long arms, I guess, which is kind of ironic because this is Mike Washington we're talking about here. But yeah, last year went to Arkansas. Year before that, he was at a much smaller school. I think it was like New Mexico State or something, which is part of the reason why people are a little bit not sure what to think here. But the size, the speed, the general athletic ability, like these are the traits of a guy who goes much higher than where he's projected to go. These are the traits of a guy who you would typically see go in the first round, I think. Is it lazy to compare him to Darren McFadden because he played to Arkansas? Because that's kind of what it feels like when I look at him, you know?
No, because that they have a type there. They're like a guy that's got a girl type that he always dates, blonde, brunette, like they're the same way because not only is McFadden part of that lineage, but the other guy that just went out of the Rocket Sanders, and there's another guy I can't remember they've had in there too over the last couple of years we've looked at. Same way, they like to have leggy running backs there for some reason.
Right.
Their guys is into games down there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like his vision as well. I think he's got good vision. I like his improvisational skills, the way he cuts. He does have the ability to hit with power because he is a bigger back. He's dangerous in space and all that stuff. So there is a lot of appeal here, but a lot of that appeal is kind of like a projection rather than something that you're looking at and going, well, this is what he is right now. This is what he is going to be the moment he hits an NFL football field. Sometimes I think he's a little too passive and tentative. Sometimes I think he overthinks things a little bit and loses out on yards because of it. He fumbles a lot, although I will say most of his fumbles came earlier in his career. Maybe that's something he's starting to solve, which that'd be nice. Pass protection technique, like there's no reason why this guy should struggle in pass protection, but he does. Needs to get better there. And as much as he should be a threat as a receiver out of the backfield, so far he kind of hasn't been. So that's something he's going to have to figure out. Like I can imagine this guy getting the ball on swing passes and just being a huge problem for defenses, but we're not quite seeing it yet. So I'd like to see that come along here. So there's a lot of positive stuff here. There's a lot of talent. I don't know if it's going to amount to anything in the NFL. I don't know about his third down value. I don't know about his ball security. Needs the right coaching, but there is immense talent here.
There is, and we're talking about a draft missing some of the upside and some of these players that you're having to make your peace with the floor. Here's a running back where you can look to more of the upside there that potentially could exist. And I think a big key here comes down to the thing that you first point out, which is the legs and the long legs. And when you have your running backs, you ideally, I think, would like more of what we call the low cut style. So Ashton Genty, Saquon Barkley, these are low cut runners, small legs, bigger upper body torsos is how they're kind of built. And this allows them to change direction much easier, which is very important, of course, as a running back. So when you have guys that are longer legged and they've got to try to change direction, it can take them a little bit longer to get those legs unwrapped from one to the other, trying to get in that way. And he is a little bit got that susceptibility to him in that way. And that when he does have to do that, you can feel a little bit of the loping. He's a little bit of a loping kind of, that you feel a little bit, but he's also a guy that if he can go and get to and he's really well designed to me to an outside zone system, because if you can have him go run to the outside zone there, he's going to get to the spot at the right time with that burst. You feel that burst. It's not first step quickness. I'd call it more 3-step quickness, but he's going to get there at the right time. And if you block it right and the timing hits right, he can then punish defenses with a really big play. I mean, he's a house machine potentially there once you can potentially do that. So really this pick would come down to, from my perspective, Brendan, how much confidence do you have in your offensive line in those forward steps they took at the end of last year and how you blocked at the edges, especially your tight ends, all of that together in creating those holes? Because you've had running backs here recently who've had to kind of do some things at times on their own until last year at the end of the year where things started to really get better. But this blocking system, of course, is one that's supposed to not be built on needing to have running backs have to create on their own. So if you don't ask Mike to do that, you say, here's where the hole is going to be, get there at the right time, hit it full blast. I think he can be pretty punishing, and he's got some upside to what he can bring. And I think the McFadden comp can be on point. I think McFadden had more than a couple 1,000-yard seasons. I don't think he'll ever be considered the best back in the sport, but definitely can churn that out for you on a rookie contract for a couple of years.
Yeah, I kind of like it. I feel like if you end up with Mike Washington, and I mean, when I did my evaluation of Mike Washington, he was being projected as a 4th-round pick because it was right after the combine. That's probably not going to happen now. You'd probably have to take him a good amount higher than that. But at least you're kind of reaching for the stars here. At least you're saying, let's get a guy with the skills to fit into our offense who can give us the things that we need. And if we hit pretty hard. Like, this guy has the potential to hit much harder than a guy like Jadarian Price to me. Yes, he's probably not as a sure thing as Jadarian Price, but I can see Mike Washington becoming a really special back in this league. I don't know about that with Price. So there's something exciting here. I would definitely tell everybody to temper your enthusiasm a little bit, but it's fun to imagine.
It is. I share your sentiment as well with him being probably underrated out of the backfield. I especially really like when he's got to get out to the flat, that burst also shows up to where he's out at the flat like instantaneously off the snap and providing his quarterback a quick, clear target there to throw to out of the backfield fast. In a way, some running backs can take a little bit of time to kind of, just jog their way out there. He gets out there and you feel it there too. He plays with a lot of urgency at the position. He's a downhill back. He's going to be a one cut and go runner, just a nice pure fit to this offense and what you want to look for. Has as well the 223 size. We're talking about Price down at under almost sub 200 pounds. So like a 20-pound difference between these guys as well, which makes a difference because when you have the guy going up to full speed in that hole, why this outside Shanahan system likes that is because now when that linebacker who's kind of a little bit late to get to that back comes in there and he's doing a glancing tackle, he can't do the full wrap up. He now just flops off the guy. The guy's not breaking the tackle per se. He's not laying a shoulder down and knocking him. It's just that his speed explosiveness means that this guy's got to bring a fundamental amount of force to bring that guy then down in the hole in that way. And that's why it has had that kind of archetype of back that this system has looked for so many years. Kind of going back to Terrell Davis being sort of the creator of the mold of this kind of back from an ideal standpoint, Brendan.
Yeah. So if we end up with Mike Washington at 64, I'm not going to mind that at all. I don't know if I'd go 32 just because I know that there's some real downside here, but even like middle second round at this point, I'm like, oh, okay, at least you're going for it. I respect it.
I do too. And I think that when a guy times like he times and he's got the speed on tape like he has, that's something that causes running backs recently historically, to get taken a little bit higher. And that if you put those time to testing times, go teams like, oh, you're in the 4.3s. Okay, that's a different level of speed than we're tending to find in these running backs, even in a day, later on into day 2 and day 3 in that way. I also share your feeling that my preference would be more for the upside of Washington than the floor of Jadarian Price, which I think is the very kind of key between the two of them on that one. Keeping this rolling up, we've got ourselves a local guy, a UW guy, a guy that I'm sure a lot of people are going to like here in how he runs. He's a fun guy to watch run too, Brendan. How can you not like watching hammers run? We got a little Jonah Coleman coming in 5'8", did not test out at the combine, so I've got nothing going off there. 70th was his positional rank.
He did a bench press. He did do 22
he did bench.
Reps. Uh-huh.
22 reps on the bench. There we go.
Actually
so
pretty good for a running back, I guess. But he's got short arms, so you have to.
Yeah. They just those long arm guys got to go like this. Those short arm guys that's all they do. 50. But Jonah's a fun back. Is he a fit to this offensive scheme, Brendan? Especially when we don't have his testing times.
Probably not. That doesn't mean he can't contribute. That doesn't mean he can be a good player. But he's got great vision. I like the way he sets up plays. He's really, really good on third down. He's going to be at the very least a good check down back, and he's a great blocker. He's probably the best pass blocking back in this draft, if I had to speculate on that. He's got good patience. He runs with leverage because he's so low to the ground, which is honestly, I think being short as a running back is better. I'd rather have a short running back. Does have a little bit of elusiveness, but not really. It's just kind of impressive that he can elude as much as he does at his size. It's not what you would totally expect from him, but not really much speed, not really quick. And as much as he is kind of like this little squat guy, I don't necessarily feel like he's a true power back. I think he's a guy who builds up momentum, and then his momentum can carry him through some tackles. But in terms of like getting like that last couple of yards at the goal line or whatever, I'm not really sure if that's going to work at the NFL level. he also never really had that superstar college season. Unfortunately, as I know, his 2025 season got derailed a little bit by injuries. There was a point in time where it looked like he was going to be like a 1,800-yard back, and it just kind of crashed and burned. He's more of a check down catcher. He doesn't really run routes. He catches check downs and then makes cool things happen after the check down. So you got to understand what you're getting there. So I appreciate watching his game. I do appreciate elements of him, but in this offense, not really. And even outside of that, I don't know if there's enough talent here for him to be anything more than like a backup back. So like you get him in the late third round, I think that's fine, but I'm not, I don't know. He's got kind of a weird game, and I'm not 100% sure how it works in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm very much similar in this, in that I do think I like him a little bit more as a goal line back, short yardage guy. I think he's got good vision, good real lateral cutting ability, and teams really you got to really load up to tackle him. So you start to load tackle him, and then he just gives you a little lateral cut, and he can kind of slip through the little hole there, and kind of it's even beyond being powerful, just kind of make himself really small and find that little crack and then push his way through. And he does tend to require multiple guys to bring him down in space in the open field. I do like the thought process of bringing him in as a guy that you do get as a minimum. You know he's going to bring a short yardage element. Minimum, you're going to bring the pass protection stuff you brought up. You're right about, I don't think he's going to be a route runner back there, but can he be worked out of the backfield a little bit here and there in those flat routes and screen plays? A little bit like what Walker was doing at the end of the year and do really well in those. I think he can. Quicker than fast. So I think the speed thing is going to be the thing where you really did want to see him test. Some guys you don't need it. Other guys you need it. Jeremiah Levitt wasn't much of a necessity. It was just going to be interesting to know where he was going to be sitting at on that. This is a guy I needed to see it. Are you low 4.5s or are you more in that Cam Scatabo 4.65 range last year? Because it does make a bit of a difference whether you really do fit to this scheme or not and having to run so much outside zone as you'd have to here. And that makes it hard coming into this. Now, we do know, Brendan, that the team has met with Jonah Coleman. And so there does seem at least a little bit of interest from their stance. Love his shotgun stiff arm, but struggle to know if he's quite a fit into the system as much as what they're going to be looking for, and if they're going to be hard-lined in what they're looking for these type of guys in the system. Are you out for the lack of fit, or is it the pick's got to be at this given spot to be in on him?
If he's there in the third round and we haven't taken a running back yet, that's fine. I don't want to say that every running back we have has to fit in this very narrow box. Like Charbonnet doesn't have a lot of speed. He's not really an outside zone back, and we still used him last year and still got production out of him. So I don't, and for all we know, Zach Charbonnet's like his career might be done as far as the Seahawks are concerned, because this is upcoming year going to be the last year of his deal. He's probably barely going to play. He might not be that effective, and then he might be gone. So I don't want to close the door on anything just because it's a little bit of an atypical fit. But if you're looking for a Ken Walker replacement, I don't see it here. No,
this would be part of the rotation for me on this as much as anything.
Right.
You're bringing him in on this for sure.
Exactly.
But you can get him. You could see him getting 10 touches a game and finding some usefulness if you're trying to do this as a rotational stable, which, you know, one way or the other, that's what this is going to probably be at this point.
Yeah,
absent them making a trade for.
He's reminiscent of Zach Charbonnet. He could fill that role.
Yeah, I think he could too. And you're going to maybe need that if, especially if Zach takes a little bit of time to come back, you know, from his injury next year. So I would go with the late third round pick. I would be in on Jonah at that spot. Where you jumping if you would be willing to jump?
Would you say third round pick?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I am too. I would do late third. I think that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Above that, though, it's a little bit tough for me to get behind that.
Yeah, I'm not trading up. I'm not going to go, you know, big part of where we're picking on some of these guys, the picking of them being at the end of the round like that, and that you got to consider it almost being the top of the fourth in certain ways too. But I think that's about the right spot. We'll see what he runs in his pro day, because he's got to run at his pro day, or else he risks having a little bit of drop here in this draft, I would say.
No, I mean, he may not be doing it because he knows what's going to happen if he does. Like, let's be real here. We watched him play football.
Scatabo had amazing tape at ASU and still ended up dropping down to the fourth round last year with that time, right? So
right.
It is something that hangs over his head a little bit on this one, just a little bit. All right, we got one guy that is another guy that hasn't tested. I've had a bit of a soft spot for him. I'm one of those guys. Be very interested to see where you stand with him a little bit here. And with the Penn State, like Notre Dame's got 2 running backs in this draft that are going to be eligible to be taken, that are interesting prospects. We got a man that they nicknamed him the Fat Man out there at Penn State. He's not fat, which is odd. So it's kind of an ironic name, I guess. I mean, he's thicker. He's got thick lower half. But
like you know that song by Fats Domino, Fat Man. You know the song goes, "They call me the Fat Man because I weigh 200 pounds," and it's like, man, times have changed because weighing 200 pounds now is like, that's nothing.
You're svelte. Yeah, you're svelte. You need to add a little bit of good weight there, buddy. A little light.
Yeah, exactly.
But I've got a soft spot for Kaytron Allen. Not that I'm looking to jump over the moon for him, but I just do like him in this back. I don't know, again, another guy that you don't know exactly on the fit as far as speed, quickness components are concerned. He's got the size, 5'11", 220, didn't test. Positional rank by PFF last year was 16th, Brendan. I've got a comp of a Rico Dowdle. What do you think about that as a comp there for Kaytron?
Okay. I dig it. I can see that. But let's see, what did I have here? So really productive, by the way, for a guy who you can probably get in day 3. He's had 2,400 rushing yards over the last 2 seasons combined. A lot of these guys we're talking about nowhere near that level of production. So that's notable. Really hard to bring down. He's always squeezing out those extra yards at the end of runs. I like his vision. I like the way he sets up his runs. He doesn't fumble. He's not a fumbler. He's not fast, but he does hit his cut hard. He does plant and go effectively, which is important for this offense. He's not really speedy, like you said. His burst is also not great. He does cut hard, but he doesn't have that acceleration up to top speed the way you would like. Not really a third down back. Not really going to offer much on third down, I don't think. He's not super creative in the open field. So he's like a generic power back to me. There's a place in the world for him. I think he'll be a good, like, a thumper. But 4th round feels fine to me. I can't really go too much higher than that because to me he is just kind of a power back. But there is some good stuff with him.
Yeah, he's another guy I've oscillated between late 3rd to early 4th myself. I think he's got some really nice things that are built over time. You mentioned a couple thousand yards, all-time Penn State leading rushing leader. And I think that's pretty notable when you've had guys like Kurt Warner and Saquon Barkley go through those ranks. Guy had to share some of the load in his time with another guy that we'll talk about. They
have Kajana Carter too.
Kajana Carter came through there as well. Yeah. So I think it's kind of notable that he's been the guy that is overtaken that. And I think he's got these things that I think when you play so much college football and you get so many snaps, there's this kind of wisdom you get for the position, and your eyes talking to your feet and sensing things that other running backs might take a hair a little bit longer to kind of pick up. His contact balance is just, I think, awesome. Knows how to keep his feet picked up, keep the feet churning. The speed burst stuff I'm a little bit questionable on, and that's so important at kind of the front of everything before we get to some of these other extra skills. But he's got a kind of pairing stiff arm to keep guys away. He's just got a good feel for what's required in the moment, run to run, when to have patience, when to kind of stagger his approach, when to hit it fully downhill. He's carries the 220 pounds, I think, pretty good, even though he's, but again, come back to, there could be a little bit of some sluggishness there to him if you tested him. Like if you found him at being 4.55, for instance, wouldn't shock me. But we don't have his testing times either on him with this one. So a little bit of a guessing game there. That's why I came back to a Rico Dowdle, tough inside runner, kind of a bare minimum that you get. Brendan just spoke to the fact that there's not a lot he's going to give you as a pass catcher. I'd agree with that. It's maybe functional at best, but this is a guy that finishes runs with violence. He can wear down a defense over the course of a game, just being a tough tackle, snap in and snap out. Nothing that's outside of the contact balance that super stands out in his skill set. Just had a lot of, to me, Brendan, I thought extra parts to his game that were nice. That rounded out him as a running back.
Yeah, I can appreciate it, but it does feel a little bit to me like there are a lot of backs about this good out there that you can find. Like I feel like power backs, like what separates him from Seth McGowan? I don't feel like there's a ton.
I think it's a fair point on that. It's especially a fair point with that. I think he's a little. I think he can run a little harder than Seth. Seth runs really hard, and he will fight his butt off on every run like his life's on the line. But it's a little bit of like that Pacheco vibe you get from him at times. Whereas with Allen, I think that there's true like I'm churning my feet. You got your hands on me. I've got two guys with their hands on me. I'm churning, and I'm getting those couple extra yards. Versus I think with Seth, I think it's more of he just busts out of those runs sometimes, which is that the violence he runs with, where it's like just about to get him in hand and poof, he snaps out of it and gets the extra couple of yards. Where just Kaytron to me will grind you and just he'll fall forward, he'll push the pile. He's kind of got a little bit more of that element to him, but they're both power backs, so it's not like you're, you know what I mean?
Right.
All right. Another guy here, I'm a little light on here. Brendan didn't test particularly well, but a guy that a lot of people do like out there. Emmett Johnson out of Nebraska, 5'11", 200-pound back, ran a 4.56 40 at the combine, 1.59 10-yard split, 35.5-inch vertical leap, so fairly average to below average testing across the board there, even with especially with the 10-foot broad jump, kind of the bare minimum you'd like to see out there on that. Only did 16 reps on the bench. Positional rank was 47th last year. I'm interested to hear your opinion on this one. I don't not like him.
7.32 3 cone, first percentile. That
Change
3
direction,
cone,
baby.
yeah. Well, no, that's bad. 7.32 for a running back is horrendous. That's almost the worst they've ever had.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is as bad as it gets for a running back. That would be bad for a left tackle. So number one, we got that. So violent runner, he runs like a freight train. He just like throws his body around. Very skilled pass catcher as well. That's probably my favorite thing about him, honestly, the fact that he's a great pass catcher. But to me, he's like a power back that's too small to be a power back. I feel like this guy's only going to last a few years in this league the way he plays. I get the sense that he's going to be like a guy who has a 3-year career because he throws himself around so violently, but there's not the size and the girth to back that up. He's 202 pounds at the combine. So I think he'll be fun for a few years. Maybe like Scatabo will end up being, but at least Scatabo has size. Scatabo, it's more like he's just going to get a bunch of concussions and retire after a couple of years. This guy is more like, I think his whole body's going to break down. The main thing I like about him is as a third down back. I put him in day 3. I think he's a round 4 guy. I can't green light him before that. And when I get him, I might just say, hey, look, you need to tone it down a little bit, and we're going to turn you into a third down back because we like what you can do as a pass catcher. That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, I'm probably a little lighter on him as a pass catcher than you are, and I don't hate him. I just think it's fine, it's good, but it's not. I don't know if it's a guy that just struggle with it when he can flip his hips, and he can do it with like, I know I'm going to flip my hips here and go. He can. It's almost like a superpower for him in the change of direction stuff. But then when it isn't, it goes from one to the other end, which is part of the 3 cone thing that doesn't surprise me, because when he kind of has to now. I didn't plan on changing my hips. I got to change direction. I can't fully flip my hips to change. I got to just try to kind of angle this a little bit. And you can really feel a slow kind of turn as he's going to try to do that. That really slows him down. He's got to kind of be pointed in the right direction. It's almost like a little bit lesser of the Mike Washington, almost a little bit in what he brings. And the 200 pounds, you're right about the whole point where a guy at the college level at 200 pounds can run through guys, because those guys are going to be 20 pounds lighter or whatever. But you got to be more into that 220 pound range of things as a running back if you're going to run with violence at the next level and be able to truly knock guys over and, be a bowling ball at times. And I think that he's kind of a man that's caught in between a couple of worlds there, where it's, not quite a power back, not quite a big play, go after him kind of guys. He's also kind of a lesser Jadarian Price in a lot of ways. The guy had 36 runs of 10 yards or more. It's a little bit of kind of all or nothing, I think, at times with him on his runs. And part of that's that change the flip the hips thing, which comes back to the 3 cone thing that you mentioned, right? Which is then inherently within his build. That's not you can't change that. You can't adapt that, evolve that. That's going to stay right where it's at. So that's where I do come down to in the same place you kind of are from. Maybe you get a couple of years out of him here and he can run with a lot of violence, get away with it for a couple of years before he gets kind of broken down at that size. Even Cam Scatabo we saw last year wasn't able to make it through the year with that style as a guy that, though he's a little bit heavier than Emmett, I only think he's probably like 5-10 pounds heavier. And so when you have this running style at that size, it's tough.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I just see somebody that's going to be quick for this league. So I said day 3, so that's round 4 for me. And even there, I'm kind of like, oh man, it feels like a rental.
I know the more we talk about, the more I'm wanting to kind of drift him down further, the more I'm thinking of it like, yeah, maybe 5th round is the right spot on this guy when it's all said and done there with it. I don't know. It's a tough one on that.
Fun player.
Yeah, he's got some stuff he brings. So he's not a completely nothing burger as far as what he is or completely overrated, but just that there's some limitations there to him. And again, you'd like to look at find guys, I think, at a running back that what do they do good? Especially if I get into day 3, you're like, okay, what is that you bring the good thing? Like a Jonah Coleman, for instance, we go, okay, I think I can find effectiveness in short yardage, and then I can find him effectiveness out of the backfield occasionally in that way. And like, if that's his bare minimum floor, at least I'm finding effectiveness in day 3. This could be a guy that you're finding doesn't give you kind of either. You might have a little more, maybe with you might feel like he gives you a little bit more third down back potential there, but that's where I'd be a little bit more probably even reticent on that one to just go, I may not get anything out of it. And a guy that you take in the 4th round, and that makes me a little nervous.
Right.
A couple donations here. HHG with a $2 donation. And he asks, what would be the cost for A-Chain? Hypothetical. And this was one that's been coming up as well. We got Devon A-Chain, the running back from Miami. Miami may be in a bit of a fire sale.
I do think you'd probably have to give up your 1st round pick because it's a weak draft and you have the last pick in the 1st round. And I'm amenable to that, actually. I don't know if I can go beyond that, but if that's what it takes to get one of the best young running backs in the league and someone who's a perfect fit for this scheme and someone that would really allow you to say, hey, we kept up with the Joneses this offseason, I'm amenable to it. I think A-Chan's going to do a lot more to help us win a Super Bowl this year than anybody you can get at 32. So I'm open-minded here. So, but I do think that's what the cost would be.
What about his contract?
Well, that's obviously something you'd have to consider along with the trade. Now, he does have 1 year left on that rookie deal, which is kind of nice. So you get a little bit of that buffer, which you would not have had with Ken Walker. So the extension kind of, appends to the end of the 1 year he has left, and you can kind of spread it out in a way that's a little bit more logical. Here's my question. Would he get significantly more, a little more, the same, or even a little less than Ken Walker? Because yes, he's a better player than Ken Walker. Yes, he just had a better season than Ken Walker, but we all know Ken Walker got paid that much because he went crazy in the playoffs, and A-Chan didn't do that. So what's the scaling here? Like, well, what does the A-Chan extension look like in your mind?
Well, it does get hard to pinpoint down because there's some give and take with this deal, right? I mean, A-Chan's a guy coming off 1,350 yards on a bad Dolphins team averaging 5.7 yards per carry, and then he throws in another 67 receptions for almost 500 yards receiving. That's almost a damn near 2,000-yard season that he just put together cumulatively. And that's off of being a very effective player for them in his first couple of years there. So I don't know, when he looks at the Walker thing and he goes, okay, with Walker, he's run for marginally more yardage than me on his rookie deal, albeit he had an extra year to run that more yardage that he did. Right. I've probably averaged about, so like I've been every bit. So the point being, I've been every bit what he's been as a running back. I'm much more out of the backfield as a pass catcher than he is. I don't know where A-Chain's at as a pass protector, but I'd be hard to be worse than where we were at as a baseline with Walker. And I have to wonder a little bit, if not him pushing coming off the season he is, knowing he is a running back, that he's going to Miami and he's like, you guys got to pay me here. I outperformed my 3rd year of my deal. I was a 3rd round pick. I haven't made my money in this league. My career's not going to last long as a back. Pay me. And so you go and you trade for him, Brendan. And we know this is where I'm not against your proverbial here. I just want to kind of pick at this a little bit to understand it better, because you trade for him. Are you signing him to a contract extension? John's kind of intimated at times he doesn't like doing that anymore. Trading for guys that have to sign him to extension. Okay, so you don't sign him to extension. Do you have to give him a promise that you're going to let him walk next year without a franchise tag then? Does John just not want to give a franchise tag out pure and simply at that point and letting him go? And hopefully you can get a contract extension done at that point. But those would be the two things I think you could be facing by making that 1st round trade, is not having those insurance layers built in on that, where maybe you're only getting a 1 year rental on a 1st round pick at that point.
Yeah, I do think if you give up that first round pick, you just have to shrug your shoulders and extend. And I'm cool with that, to be clear. Like I understand not wanting to pay running backs. I think you always have to be willing to make an exception for the right running back. And to me, this guy is the right running back. Maybe Walker wasn't, because Walker had injury issues. He couldn't be a bell cow. He wasn't a good third down back. None of that stuff applies to Achane. Achane's played every game except for one the last 2 seasons, and the one game he missed was because Miami was tanking. So I think it's different. I do. And I think that obviously it's a little bit uncomfortable, but I think it's also a little bit uncomfortable to hold on to your first round pick in this draft and take a player that you know is not going to be as good as a typical first round pick. So I'm okay with it. I mean, what would the extension be? What do you think? Is it 15? Is it 17? Is it 18 per million per year? Of course, is what I'm saying. Like, well, what are we, where are we getting to?
I think it's probably in the neighborhood of a 13 to 15. And he's probably, Walker came off his 4th year. So the club control was kind of gone. You were going to have to franchise him or not. You do have the 1 year of club control. Leverage does impact these deals a little bit. I don't know that you want to bring a guy in and that you're going to hardline him, though. That'd be my point here, is that like you're not going to want to have a guy that's a running back that's coming in as kind of like, oh, I'm here to be a rental for a year in Seattle before I'm going to have to go somewhere else to get paid. So I think you're right about having to probably pay him, and maybe you can get a little bit of the discount because of the fact that he's only gone through 3 years versus Walker going through 4 years before that point. So that might be able to draw a little bit of it, maybe a little bit, but then he's got that whole thing that he can counterbalance this to say, but yeah, I bring more value than Walker. So like, okay, my timeline's not up, but I can give you more in the field than he can. And that's where this gets a little interesting to me. But you be a yes on a 3-year, $15 million per first round pick. You're okay on that front.
Yeah. I would say so. Yeah. I think that's probably all right. And again, you do have to consider there are other things going on here. Like, we are in a window right now. I don't think there's anything wrong with making a move that you under normal circumstances might not because of that. So I think that's probably fine. Now, if you're getting up to like 18, 19, 20 million a year, that's could be a little bit different. I don't know if I want to give him Saquon money, but 15 million a year at this point is, for a player of that caliber, not something I have a problem with.
Yeah, I could probably be talked into it if the contract extension was coming. I think the Hawk fans would be a little bit annoyed because they'd say, why didn't you just sign Walker? And then you didn't have to give up the first round pick. Kind of like the inverse of what the Ravens did with Hendrickson, so to speak. So, but I think you talked a little bit about what would be baked into that decision would be the front office's knowledge of Walker's medical history and not believing that that's maybe going to hold up as much, along with some of the deficiencies within the game and as far as pass protection and average as a pass catcher. And this guy, they say the math works better on this for the fit to this scheme and what he can do as far as a more multitude of different skills.
Yeah, Achane is also a year younger. I think that has to be factored in here.
It's true, especially for running backs, man. When they're like dog years, 1 year for a running back's like we're 3 years for a regular NFL player, right?
Right. So I'm open to it, man. But for all we know, maybe Miami's in a different place. Maybe Miami's hey, second round pick, let's go. I don't know.
Yeah. And I'd certainly jump into that point if they're willing to do that, or you can do a second in a future 5 or something to make it go, something like that. That would be great too. So hard to see Miami doing an extension here. I know that they've talked about them doing that, but it just doesn't make any sense. You're going to lean into a tank mode, but then you're going to sign a running back to big money.
Yeah. I mean, I think they did great with that Waddle trade. Actually, I think I
do too. I like them. I'm with you. Go to the tank, jump into the tank full stream, swan dive into that mofo. But don't pay a running back then when you're going to be behind in football games constantly. You're not going to run the ball very much. It's like kind of a pointless signing at that point versus just getting some value back and maximize all that value across the board. There's a couple teams, Brendan, that have done this offseason. The Jets, I think the Cardinals have kind of done this, and I think that they're smartly positioning themselves in the correct manner to put their organizations in a better footing into the future doing this.
Yeah, except for the Breece Hall thing with the Jets, that doesn't.
Yeah, well, that's where like they did this. The Dolphins did that with Achane here. It'd be like you're matching that, which is like everything worked to this, and then you did this, and then this doesn't make any sense. So I don't know there if they, we'll see, and they may end up moving Hall too. They may just be trying to sit there like the Dolphins are and saying, hey, we know it's a weaker, it's an okay running back draft, but not the strongest. So maybe we can go get better value as we get to the draft, especially if one of these teams can't get a running back that they have targeted in this draft. Now they'll come around and throw us some actual better assets than what we're being offered right now.
Yeah. Would you give up a second round pick for Breece Hall?
Do I have to sign him to extension after that point?
I mean, probably, because he's on a tag, right? Either you just inherit the tag, which nobody wants to do, or you extend him. But the extension would probably be like, what, 12 million? I don't think he's on the level of Achane or what Walker got.
I would think so. This gets hard to predict, though, exactly, because of the fact that you have the guy like Walker through that fourth year, and he's got the theoretically a little bit more leverage to push you on that with making him play out in that year on that tag and how that can hit the cap. So it does get a little bit hard to predict that one way or the other, I would say. For a second rounder, I think I like a little bit of, like, for instance, we're talking about, well, I got to go draft, flip a pick for a player, and maybe he's going to walk after this year because I don't put him on in a contract. I can much more make my peace with doing that in the second round and knowing that there's probably a compensatory pick that's going to come back around the line on that one, like we're going to get for Walker, versus doing it with the first round pick, like we would have done with Achane. And it's like, ooh, that hurts a little bit more than the late second round. That's basically a third round pick. I could make my peace there.
The Jets ruined everything, by the way. If they traded Breece Hall to the Chiefs last year like they should have, the Chiefs wouldn't even go after Walker. Walker probably doesn't get as much money. Maybe we even get to keep him. And it has this domino effect on the whole running back market. Like the Jets ruined everything.
But it just doesn't make any sense. And maybe they'll get more compensation down the line with this. But I think these teams have got to get while the getting's good. The Crosby trade showed this. You try to hold out for that. Maybe we'll get better assets down the road for this commodity that we have. Careful on your thinking with that, because you might end up finding that you're going to end up down more bargain basement prices, and you could have maximized it out better. But again, as we always said, bad organizations are bad for a reason. And you can see, even amidst very smart moves like flipping guys for multiple first round picks and Quinn Williams for a first round pick, you can still find them doing things where it's like still kind of the same old Jets. Mm-hmm. Industry Worth, thank you for the $5 donation. Says, just wanted to say hey and keep up the great stream. Well, thank you for that, Industry Worth. Appreciate you. Drop another $2 donation with a lot of heart emojis as well, cat emojis as well. Thank you for that. Pumpkin and Zena, appreciate you. Industry Worth. Sandman, thank you for the $5 donation on Brendan's side. Says, seems like we can get a decent cornerback in this draft in the second. I feel we go edge in the first. Who do you guys like there?
Well, we are going to have a future show where we talk about the edge rushers in this draft at length. There are a couple guys that I think would make a decent deal of sense at 32 if you're talking about going edge in the first. I've really kind of grown. I got a thing for TJ Parker, honestly. I'm starting to think that might be a Mike McDonald edge. Like that seems like a D-Law replacement to me. Zion Young, who apparently the team likes a lot as well. There's a lot of hype around Zion Young. And I think it would mostly be those two guys if we're talking about 32. Maybe Akeem Mesidor, because I do like his game a lot, but I know he's already 38 years old or whatever, so it's tough.
Yeah, I'm not as big on TJ Parker. Both him and the other running mate, Peter Woods, their tape didn't do a lot for me. I think you're right. Zion Young is a guy that I could see potentially being a target in there at that spot. Messidor's a little bit from the school of, I think, low to high guy rather than high to low guy. He's a hand in the dirt. That's where he's at his best, I think, more than he is standing up. I also think he'll be off the board by the time we pick. I think Derek Moore is a potential in there as kind of a dark horse. They could probably trade down to mid-second and get a guy like him, or even a Danny Dennis Sutton as well. More middle second roundish. You don't have to go early at that spot at the end of the first round there for those guys. But yeah, I could see how TJ could be a fit in the defense. He's a power edge. Same thing with Akeem Mesidor and what he can bring too. Just with Akeem, it's just so much of, he just felt different to me when you get him that hand of dirt coming up versus trying to stand, and the just difference of explosiveness coming off the ball to me when he did one versus the other there on that side. But there's a lot of good edges, Sandman, and there's certainly a way where that would be the right value in that spot. Did you like Ruben Bain, by the way? Did you ever get a chance to go and look at him much?
I mean, I do have an appreciation for him for sure. I'm not really looking at him that hard because I know we'll never be able to get him in a million years, but I think he's going to overcome his physical limitations as much as they are alarming.
If he falls to 10 and it costs you 2 first-round picks, or this year's first-round pick and next year's first-round pick to go get Bain, would you do it?
I don't think so. I don't want to give up that first next year. The next year's draft is a little too good for me, but I do like him.
Yeah, he's a guy I've got a little bit of crush on this draft. You're right about this, the cornerbacks being potentially available there at the end of the second. Sandman don't have to necessarily jump at the end of the first. They could also do the first though too. There's kind of like two different tiers where there's a value system where valuable guys there at the end of the first round. Everything from Colton Hood to Brandon Cisse to Chris Johnson. Then at the end of the second round, you might have guys like Malik Muhammad, Keith Abney, Devin Moore, Dalen Everett. So there's a couple different spots there where there's some really good quality there, be it at the end of the first or into the late second on that.
Yeah,
either
absolutely.
way. You could inverse that edge thing. You go corner edge corner, and you could make an argument the value is well suited going with either of those two directions on the picks. All right, let's keep it rolling here. Thank you guys for all your donations here, and let's get on to another running mate out there at Penn State, a guy that kind of took a step back this year, but has been a good player for them. Nicholas Singleton broke his foot there at the Senior Bowl.
Yep.
And foot, so I didn't get as much of a look at him. Nicholas looked good. By the way, Kaytron looked good. I got to do a little interview for him with Roundtable, and he's definitely you don't feel the size is more of some of these guys. You got to be right in person, be next to him to kind of get a feel for their size. He's got some good size, but Singleton's good back too.
Yeah, I'm a fan here. I think he's got the ability to be a power back because he's got that size, 219 at the combine. He's good at being the low man into contact, even though he's kind of tall. Like, I know he's 6 feet tall, but he knows how to get low. He's got a decent amount of elusiveness as well for a bigger back. He's quick through the hole. He can actually get outside on zone runs a little bit better than you might expect for a bigger guy as well. Good threat in the passing game. He caught 41 passes in 2024, so he's a pretty good receiver. He's a good protector as well against blitzes, and I think he could even be a decent kick returner. Not that we really care about that all that much. Just you got to wonder, like, why didn't the production ever match the talent? Like, there's a lot of ability here. There's a lot of stuff here where you're like, wow, this guy can do it all. Why isn't he putting up 2,000-yard seasons in college? Part of it's because he's sharing carries, I know, but like, where's that big hammer season where he's just like dominant? Never really happened. I don't think his vision is where it needs to be. He can be a little bit impatient, and he's got the injury thing right now, which alarms you a little bit. I know it's like a fluke thing, but I think he was also missed some of 2025 season as well with an injury. So you got to start wondering a little bit, but I think there's a lot of upside here. I think he's got a prototypical build. I think he's got great all-around talent. There's just a little bit of risk tolerance you have to have because he's not super productive and he's got injury problems, but I'd go early third on him. I actually found myself liking him more than I thought.
Even with the injury concerns. Okay. I do like him as well. I've got him in the fourth round myself, as much because the injury stuff, third round talent, but the injuries are notable there, including the broken foot. I think he's a blacksmith running back, which isn't a bad thing, but he's just the ultimate north-south style of runner. There's no flash. There's not going to be any juke moves. There are not going to be any spins. He doesn't have any kind of go to this or go to that. He's just going to pick up his leg or try to hop out of tackles. I think when you talk about why his talent's so good and why he isn't more effective, I think it comes down to that. You know, there's guys that are just natural runners of the rock who they just have a fluidity to what they do and an understanding of how to, get free and shake guys. He feels like, to me, a guy that would be like, the old Miles Jack variety coming out of UCLA, where it's like a guy that is a linebacker that they moved to running back just because he's so fast and explosive. And that's what you kind of feel from him in the backfield, is a guy that just like feels like a former LB doing this rather than just a guy. I've been running back since I was 7 years old, like in Pee-wees versus the other side of it. So he does have some prototypical stuff that you would like. Unfortunately, we can't see where the testing time stuff goes to, but I think that this offense wouldn't be the worst thing for him to be able to get into the downhill offense. It's going to have him just get to the hole fast, get downhill. We're not going to ask you to do a lot, run over guys as you can. I like that part of him. So there's a lot here. I think that's a decent potential fit into this offense. And the guy that you'll probably be able to get into more of the fourth round because of that broken foot. I don't think that he goes into day three, because of that. Though again, he was really productive, 3,500 yards, 50 touchdowns in his career. But he is a little bit of a hard running back to pin down because you want a little bit more than you see from him on tape a little bit. And there's just not any kind of flair to the game.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that the production never matched the talent. I think there's some real talent here for him to be one of the better backs in college football, and he had like less than 800 yards from scrimmage last year, and I think he got hurt. I understand, but even the year before that, less than 1,500 yards. You feel like there's something being left on the table.
Yeah. But maybe he'll be able to capture that as a pro. There's been those kind of running backs that's been the way where talent's there, then finally the injuries clean up, they get their chance in the right system and really could take off. And that's why Brennan's got him in the third freaking round. Okay, let's keep it rolling here to another guy that I'm very interested by, potentially here for Seattle, and that's Demond Claiborne. The kid's 5'10", 195, ran a 4.3, 740, lightning fast, though the 10-yard split was only 159, so not quite as blistering there, and the broad just okay at 10.2. What did you think about him? He's got some interesting tape to me.
Yeah, he's kind of like Ken Walker, but worse at everything almost, but he kind of plays similarly. That's kind of how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's Ken Walker, but he fumbles, but he doesn't quite have the acceleration. But he's got the same kind of speed, very close to Ken Walker type speed in the open field. Yeah, I do like him. In fact, I think this might be, if you get to day 3 of the draft and you haven't addressed this yet, this is kind of your break glass in case of emergency guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that the aggregate big board has him around the 6th round right now. So in theory, you could get him with that 6th round pick. Now, I don't know if that's actually going to happen or not, of course, but that would actually be a decent pull. If you get all the way there, you haven't addressed running back yet, the whole fan base is kind of freaking out, and then you pull Demond Claiborne, you're like, okay, I could see this working. I could see this actually panning out, and we didn't have to use a top 100 pick on it. But yeah, he's got the open field speed to break the big runs. He's got some moves to elude tacklers in small space. He's explosive. He's got some special teams upside as well. Not over, but almost 2,000 rushing yards over the last 2 years. Obviously playing for Wake Forest, not the greatest competition in the world. He's very small, and that does come with problems. He's sub 190. He was 188 at the combine, by the way. So the 195 is giving him a little bit of credit that I don't know if he deserves. He's got very short arms. He does some dancing, right? And if you were ever the Seahawks fan that got frustrated at Ken Walker for dancing too much, you're going to get frustrated with this guy too, because he dances. He's got some fumbling issues. He's not great on third down yet. He needs to get better on third down. And like you said, that 10-yard split doesn't really instill you with a ton of confidence that he's going to be able to get to the outside on zone. But you look at the tape, I feel like he can do it, honestly. I feel like the tape tells a different story a little bit. So diet Ken Walker, I'd go maybe early 5th, late 4th-ish, somewhere around there. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, but he does kind of feel like, not the Ken Walker that you want, but the Ken Walker that you need.
Yeah, you'd sustain yourself a little bit here at this point if you haven't gotten to the back, that's for sure. But he is a guy I think does give you enough the size speed component to get the job done there. And he's a tiptoe runner to me, which is interesting on his style. He's a guy that gets up on his toes, and it's almost like he's constantly about to fall forward. Like he's just about to fall forward on his face, that he really, some backs run behind their pads, some get kind of in that low kind of gait. He leans out over it, and it has him kind of constantly rolling forward a little bit, but it also gives him a little bit of extra pop on contact, which I like, which gives him a little bit of extra finishing of the runs, even at his size being a little bit limited, which I think will help in the next level, because so many backs that don't have that momentum, I think they create at times when they do that. But he's got some great ability to cut on a dime, like you say. There's some Walker light stuff, but even that, the light part is like he kind of peg legs it a little bit when he hits that lateral cut, where it's like ding, 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 and then he's at backup field. Now he's got his feet and he's able to go. So there's some stuff that you can definitely point to that are little warts within the game that he has out there. Maybe a little bit of the dancing stuff is apropos as well. But 2-year starter, nearly 2,000 yards rushing, 23 total touchdowns. The drops are relevant. The drops and fumbles, actually. A few drops in the pass game, and then the fumbles as well. So, late 4th, 5th round, not the worst of value for a guy that come in and fit to his particular role within this offense at that point. But kind of Walker did as well.
At the end of the day, if he was a better prospect, he would not be potentially available on day 3 of a week draft. So you get what you pay for sometimes. And here, I think you could get a little bit better than what you pay for. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of some potential here. Not saying it's through, but there's some potential, and the speed's legitimate as a big play guy. I like him. I've got a bit of a fondness for Demond. All right, let's go to another guy I'm interested to hear what your opinion is on. A lot of differing opinion out there on this guy, the kid out of Kentucky, Seth McGowan, 6'1". I think he actually weighed 223 at the combine. So I've got his.
Yes, I got 223 as well at the combine.
And boy, I was shocked. He carries 223 pounds so easily, Brendan. He almost looks like a thin 223 on the field to me. But he ran a 4.49 40, not bad. 1.610 yard split, not good. But 42.5 inch vert, that's outstanding. 10-11 broad, almost 11 foot broad. That's outstanding.
Out the building.
520. Huh?
Jump out the building.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So some decent testing numbers, some not great, and then great testing numbers here from him from the combine. 311th was his positional rank last year by PFF, so not a well graded back in how they outlooked on him. Where do you stand here with Seth McGowan?
Hey, he's a power back and a pretty good one. Really hard to bring him down. His power, his size, it's all tough. Even though he's tall, he knows how to be the low man into contact. He gets low and gets underneath the pads. He rips through the hole fast once it opens up. Once it's there, he just throws himself through it. Explosive movement skills, which is spoken to with the vert. And, it might be interesting because I think some people look at things like the vert and the broad and they don't know. They don't know what it means on a football field, right? They look at that and they're like, okay, why are they doing this? Are they trying to win the Olympics? Are they trying to win a gold medal? Or, what does that tell us? And to me, what a vert and a broad do is they kind of tell you how much explosiveness you have in your hips.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree that it's in what you need. Guys wrapping you up from behind, and you've got to force your way out of there. If you don't have an explosion, you're not going to fight through those tackles. You're not going to be able to get through contact. Even if you test really fast on his time, that's going to be something that's going to stand out.
Mm-hmm. I think he's got good vision skills. I think his vision is good as a back. Now, he doesn't really do much on passing downs. Not really going to be somebody you want out there on passing downs, I don't think. He's not making defenders miss in space. He is kind of more of a pure power back. His cuts are slow and segmented, which is a problem in this offense particularly. Doesn't have a lot of top speed, although he did test better than I expected. I don't necessarily see it on the football field. And he has fumbled a little bit in his career, a little bit of a concern. But to me, he's a good power back, but the explosive movement skills make him stand out to me. So I ended up landing top end of the 4th or something with him. I liked him a little bit more than the aggregate, but basically the same area. Early day 3.
Yeah, I've been struggling with him back and forth a little bit. I watched him initially and I thought he was 200 pounds on tape. I was really shocked at him being 220 because I was like, this violent style, I'm going to throw my body around and get it battered left and right. I don't know if that's going to work as well once you go to the pro level. You can get away with this at college. I don't know if you get away with it as a pro, but then 223 is what he weighs at. I think you're right about the testing stuff and that more than 4.45, more kind of 4.55 guy on tape. And that, you can see where the explosiveness from the jump side comes of it, where, like I say, when he's in contact, he can kind of rip his way out of contact. And he runs every carry is like he's running with his life on the line. Like he's been told that if you get tackled, you will die. And that part's really cool. It's a lot of fun. He's also a guy with a lot of extra motions. Like when he wants to cut the corner, arms up here flapping, his head's out here flapping, his legs are going this way. There's a lot of extra stuff with him in space to get moving in the directions he wants to get. But he's going to run with all he's got, and he's got some certifiable power. And because he comes in at 220, he's going to be able to carry some of that to the pro level, Brendan. But I've struggled with him just a little bit because outside of the ferocity with which he runs, I don't know. There's a lot of extra stuff there, but hyperactive as hell, man. He's going to get after the hole with urgency. Maybe they feel like he'll have just enough juice there because he's going to have a little bit of the size they're going to like from a Seattle perspective as far as backs here, especially with how hard he runs. But I kind of wonder if a little bit if they're going to look more of guys that have a little more of the speed on tape for the replacement to Walker, knowing you have the Charbonnet and knowing you have even a McIntosh, a guy that can run with some decent amount of power inside himself.
Yeah. Upton Stout can have fun trying to tackle this guy though.
Yeah. He's gonna lead a lot of sore bodies in his wake, the way that this guy goes at it. So he's fun. I got him 5th round as well. So I think he's interesting, but wild when I saw he was at 220. I would have went 195, Brendan, was what I was like thinking there. All right, here's a guy out of Clemson who hearkened me back to an old Seattle Seahawk. See if you like my reference here on this one. We got Adam Randall out of Clemson. 6'3", 232, folks. They don't come bigger than this. 4'5", 40-yard dash, so not bad at 6'3", 230, carrying 230 pounds at 4'5", 1'6". We just talked about Seth McGowan, 220. This guy's another 10, 12 pounds heavier, running the exact same 10-yard split, 37-inch vert, 10-4 broad. Okay. 4'5", 320-yard shuttle. Okay-ish. 26 reps. Strong.
Yeah.
Strong. So,
and he's got the long arms too, so give him full credit on that. That's like 46 reps if we're like putting it through the conversion machine.
There we go. And his positional rank last year, I haven't posted here, but he was a 311th was his ranking amongst running backs by PFF last year. Brendan, I saw some flashes on his tape, not fully on a comp on this. I like flashes than comp on some guys, but I saw flashes back to a Chris Warren. I know it's a little bit before your time, but
no, Chris Warren was the running back the first year I watched the Seahawks.
Oh, okay. So you remember a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I was 6, so don't get me wrong here. It's not. Yeah, like
it was a while back.
The first Seahawks running back I loved, actually, and this is the first one I really remember, was Ricky Waters. There was just something about Ricky Waters that did it for me.
Oh, I don't know. He's a guy just like the Seth McGowan we talked about. That was a guy that was going to give you everything he got with every run, and you were going to feel that. You know, it wasn't. Yeah, John Alexander after him, which everything was subtle and, you know, very kind of like hard to always see the greatness in what he was doing, though he was doing great things. But with Ricky, it was that like you were feeling him earn every inch of every run. And that's easy to root for, you know, plus he was a complete back.
Right. But yeah, Adam Randall, very interesting. One of the most interesting backs in this draft to me because he has only been playing running back for 1 year. So that is one thing to consider here. Whatever you're seeing with him right now, he had like 800 yards last year, should get better because he's just learning the position. He was a wide receiver until this last year. And at wide receiver, he couldn't stay healthy for one, so he never really produced that much. But they moved him, and it seems like he's kind of found a little something here. So you've got this fascinating mix of size and speed, right? Fascinating mix. He's strong at cutting through the hole and going. He's a one cut and go guy effectively. He's also going to be a dangerous pass catcher because of his wide receiver background. He's got special teams value. And for a guy who you would expect to be a little bit more finesse because of his receiver background, he's actually willing to play through contact. So there's some fun stuff going on here with this guy. And even though the 4.5 is not that great, like a 4.5 40 is not stellar for a running back, it really feels like he's covering ground. And with his size, a 4.5 is fine. I got no problem with a 4.5 at that size. So granted, you have big injury red flags. He is going to need time to get a feel for the position. Right now, it feels like he doesn't have much of a feel for the running back spot. He needs to learn how to win leverage because he's so tall. Right now, he's always the high man into contact. Pass protection needs to improve. And I don't know how elusive he is. He's more like a one cut and go guy. So mostly right now a straight line runner with immense talent. But I think he's a lot of fun. In this class, I'd take him in the 4th. Normally I would say probably not, but I'd take him in the 4th round just because this is not a great class. And at least I'm going to have fun with this guy.
Yeah, he's got some interesting spots to him. Like you mentioned, pass catching stuff, he really understands. He gets out of the backfield. He can kind of settle in zones and feel coverage out in ways running backs just can't. He is upright. That's that Chris Warner thing. Chris Warren was the same way where just he'd get upright in that style, and he's a taller guy, so it gets really accentuated. There's some elements here that it's kind of Derrick Henry-like a little bit, where I do feel like he is more finesse as a running back, and that he is where like Henry's got some power stuff that he does have, but it's almost like he leads more with the finesse. If he can get up to speed, hit the hole, get downhill, he can be gone. And that this guy's got a little bit of that same stuff, though he's not quite got the change of direction that Henry did. He's a little bit more of the takes some time for me to move from here to there when I want to get lateral. And that does hold him back, I think, in kind of a major way when he's got to change direction and the hole's not there. You open up the hole for him and you let him get downhill and up to speed, though, and he could be a problem. And that's where that physicality and now the explosiveness and getting downhill can be hard, especially 232, to bring him down. He might have some upside here, Brendan. He might. I do wonder about his fit here. In that they would look for this kind of guy that's a little bit maybe like taller, I think, than they would want to have. Maybe a little bit heavier than they would want. They want maybe a little bit more explosiveness. But like you said, there's the pass catching he brings, some upside that he might have because he's just new to the position and having done this relatively. The injuries kind of offset this a bit. But a guy that like 6'3", 232, you don't find him built like this very often at the running back position. So very unique talent as well.
Yeah, a lot of fun. And, maybe you move him back to receiver at some point and you're getting kind of a utility player. So there's some creativity here, even if you don't end up liking him as a running back.
Very true. I've got him in the myself 5th round on that one, just all balanced out. Probably, early, maybe mid 5th-ish or so. Early, maybe I think I had him early 5th. Yeah, I had him early 5th round. So yeah. I like him. Last couple of guys here that we're going to go through here, folks, on this. We've got Le'Veon Moss from Texas A&M. Did you like yourself, Le'Veon? We got 5'11", 210, no testing times. 179th was his PFF grade last year.
Yeah. He is a smaller back, but he understands how to use leverage to win through contact, which is nice. He knows how to be the low man and squeeze out extra yards. He's a good pass protector. He's really good at picking up blitzes. Gets up to his top speed fast. He accelerates nicely. I like his cuts. He cuts with authority. He gets upfield in a hurry. It's just the injuries, man. Like, he never had that true breakout college season. Like, I don't think he ever had 1,000-yard from scrimmage season at all because he couldn't stay healthy. Doesn't really do anything as a receiver. So having him on the field on 3rd down, it's like, okay, you're getting the blocking, but what else are you getting? Not a lot. He's not fast enough to bust big plays. He's not great in the open field. And ultimately, you need to keep things kind of simple for him. You need to be like, okay, here's the ball, here's the hole, here's the cutback lane, go. So there is some unrealized potential here just because he can't stay healthy, but I don't know if there's a lot of talent here even beyond that. So in this draft, I'd say 6th round, but in a normal draft, I'd say probably undrafted.
Yeah, I'm a similar kind of place on this one. I just think he does have a fun style. He can get downhill. He can set up his blocks. A pace and space kind of running back where, he doesn't have to just be kind of a robot and he can kind of read things a little bit. You like the vision there. And he is also good with the downhill stuff, but sustainability has been a big problem for him. You do wonder about, like you just said, the speed, explosive side of it. You don't have the testing times here with him, unfortunately. And I would wonder about him at that point with 5'11", 210. Another guy that's a little bit of a tweener, not quite a speed, fast back, elusive guy, but also not quite big enough to be quite a power guy either. So kind of a man that's in between two different lands a little bit. But 5th round, that's fine, in that area of things.
Okay, yeah.
Let's go to a couple of teammates here that were the national champions. And the first guy on this list is going to be Roman Hemby, Indiana, 6', 207, no testing times. 91st was his ranked by PFF last year. High cut, upright running back. A little bit of slight burst in speed. Brendan, what do you think about Roman?
Leggy, long legs, covers a lot of ground with his long legs. Yeah. I like his
a lot of long-legged backs in this draft, man.
I like it. I just don't know if it's what we're looking for with our scheme. It's hard to know. I like his downhill urgency. I like his power into contact. I like his vision. He's not a fumbler. I like his cuts. There's some stuff to like there, but not really a 3rd down guy. Not really going to give you much as a 3rd down back. Needs to learn how to get low because he is a little bit on the taller side right now. He kind of plays standing straight up, which is bad. Not really creative in the open field, not a lot of burst, not a lot of speed. So there's stuff I like here, but I don't feel like there's an overwhelming amount of talent. So generic depth running back who can probably be okay in his own scheme, but he's not going to create a lot of extra yards. He's not going to get reps on 3rd down. So maybe late 5th, but I'm kind of more like 6th, honestly. I don't know. To me, he's just kind of generic.
Yeah, 6th round, 7th round guy onwards there. 5th year guy as well. So when you're looking at upside here, he is what he is. There's not going to be some more development. Now he's got over 3,500 yards rushing in college, and on one hand that's good, but on the other hand, he's already got 1,000 touches on his back walking into a pro, and that does have me a little bit worried. Just functional as a pass catcher, kind of got some tight hips. Just an undersized running back missing burst and speed. So I don't think he's going to be as much of a fit to our offense. And so I do think that this is a guy that just wouldn't be really in play for our Seattle Seahawks. One guy that would be, I think, would be potentially his running mate there, Brendan. I actually liked Kalen Black's tape a little bit more here. 5'9", 208, no testing times as well. PFF ranked 65th. Just a little bit of a ball of pure muscle out there with these short, choppy steps, Brendan. What do you think about Kalen Black?
Excuse me. Sorry about that. Yeah, let me see here. So I like his improvisational skills in the open field. He's got vision to find the play. He's got vision to like cut back and find the creative yards. He is, he's got good contact balance, able to really kind of take the hit and stay up. He's a good blocker in pass protection as well. He does not let size ruin his ability to pass protect. I like his cuts. They're hard and fast. Now, I don't know how much his power game is going to translate to the NFL because he's kind of a smaller guy. You are going to have to like really keep him in a tight rotation. I don't think he can be a bell cow. I think that he's a guy you want to give the ball a handful of times a game. I don't know how long he's going to last in this league because of that, but doesn't really have great speed, not really a great receiver. But I think he might be a decent fit in his own scheme. I kind of like him like sifting through traffic, getting the opportunity to set up a play and then just burst through the hole. I think it could work. So late 4th round, I'm on board.
Yeah, I feel very similarly about him. I do like him with the speed quickness quotient, and that he's got enough there. I think that he can get the job done. I think he does run with some surprising power for his size. The contact balance is legit, and I think a big reason for that is he runs really well behind his pads. Just a really good job of staying behind at all times to be able to absorb that contact and be able to just stay off of it. You mentioned as well a little bit of the pace, vision. This is what he can also, I think, supply, where he has a really good understanding of how to set up blocks and the timing of when to hit holes, and he can really, like a couple of these backs we talked about, has a good feel for when I need to get this at 100 miles an hour and when I need to take a little bit of time to get up to the hole and hit this. And so just a guy that gives you, some really good skill as a runner with the ball, in my opinion, on top of being probably a very good fit from that quickness, speed standpoint of things. Really good change of direction on top of him, what he brings. Just a filthy dead leg move he can bring out from occasionally from time to time in addition to it. He'd be a good player. I think I've got him more into like the 4th, 5th round. I think 4th round is where I've got him currently at, right at the end of the 4th round.
I have him late 4th as well. So we are in alignment, I think.
There we go. So those are kind of the top backs, folks. There's some other guys here from Jamari Taylor to Rashul Fasson, Jaden Ott, Dante McMillan, Jamie Miller. But none of these guys, I think, were all that notable from what we saw from the tape. They're day 3 guys that, they're day 3 guys for a reason. And this is a back already that's not the strongest of drafts and not necessarily the super strongest of drafts for running backs. It's fine. It's not bad, but it's not overflowing with talent that you're going to find in the 6th and 7th round of this draft.
Robert Henry running that 4.52 was really disappointing because he's a UTSA guy and those guys are usually flyers. That would have been fun if he had run like a 4.33, but nah.
That's where sometimes, to your point, you can find also those guys that are the diamonds in the rough into the day 3s when they can run those super fast times. You go, well, I'm getting a guy that's that pure quickness, speed fit. Maybe he doesn't do this. Maybe he doesn't do that. Maybe he doesn't do this, but I've got that I can throw into this offense. And those guys just aren't really in this draft this year. A little bit more of the plotters, a little bit more of the physical guys when you get on into day 3 of this draft to the running back position. And that's not a bad thing. There's some guys that can be functional there, but you are looking for a certain type of back in this system for good reason. And I think we will come to find whoever they do add here in this draft, Brendan, is going to be that kind of fit. And that we nod our head and we go, okay, yeah, that makes sense why you're putting that in there, because that's kind of the type you need for this offense.
Yeah. So there are some guys. It's certainly not as good as last year's running back class. Not as good as the one from a few years ago, the Bijan Jahmyr Gibbs one, but we can find some stuff here that can help us.
Certainly there is. There's plenty of guys in here that can add to it. And it's, as I said, doing the research that I did last night on this, looking at the last 20 years of Super Bowl winning teams and what, they had at the running back position, and whether it was that defined difference maker that was the superhero running back, or whether it was actually just guys that were functional, or that there was a rotation of guys. In the Giants case, for instance, when they won those 2 Super Bowls with the Patriots through a couple of years difference, they had a rotation of running backs that went through there at that time. They had like 3 guys. So it's, yeah, you need quality, but you don't need stardom to make the running game work, especially when you've taken care of so many other things to make the running game work, like we saw last year, Brendan, blocking, offensive system, and just pure, unadulterated, raw offensive line talent that we have finally added to make it all work.
I like it. I like it. And I think it can work. I know it's frustrating to lose Ken Walker. I know it's frustrating to only get like a future 5th round pick out of it, but it can be done. It can be done. You can replace him in the aggregate, right? That's what they say. You can't replace him, but you can recreate him in the aggregate.
Well, and I think if you're going to get a run of these running backs in the early, day 2, or even they jump up day 1 because they just fall in love with the guy, you can understand maybe John's approach on this will be a little bit more clearer to where it's, hey, it's not that I don't value running backs. It's that I'm done paying running backs. And I'm just going to go through and be drafting these guys and drafting them high and getting really great talents in here. But I'm not going to spend all of this money to do so because that just hasn't worked out well for me in recent history. And I'm going to recognize that, which I think is a smart part of this. I've seen some Hawk fans get really mad about the Walker thing here, Brendan, but I think it's really smart of John as he's continued to do so to always be looking to where he can evolve and correct where he's gone wrong. And boy, the last 10 years, especially with the running back position, and not just, this is the key to this where I think people didn't think about this, where it's not just John's recent history of not having success in paying running backs, it's the recent league history in paying running backs, and that both of those things kind of go into alignment, don't they?
Yeah, you would think so. You would certainly hope that when you prioritize one thing, there's a trickle down. So yeah, I like it. I think it can work. And hopefully we're not sitting here in December and January lamenting how this is a Super Bowl ready team that just can't run the ball well enough to get there. So
that would be unfortunate. That would, especially if Walker's out there running for 1,800 yards with the Chiefs. Banker Elpries is going to finish us off nice with you here with a $2 dono. Thank you for that, Banker. Says odds of Shaheed or JSN taking more snaps at running back.
I mean, if they do, it's going to be like, 3 or 4 times a game. That's not really, I don't feel like you're doing that much in terms of reducing the load on your running back room. Like, yeah, it's going to happen, but it's not going to be some massive part of the offense. So I don't really want to think in those terms.
Yeah, I think when it comes to JSN, you're only going to see him banker in the backfield when he's running those shotgun running back routes where he's not being be given the ball. He's just running like a receiver out of the backfield to attack the coverages. Shaheed's a different story. They did show willingness to use him a little bit as a back at times in games. And I think if you're going through these games and you're finding that we're not having as many opportunities to throw the ball as much, or that's not coming up to get him those opportunities in that way, or you're having some difficulties at times like we had last year and getting him touches pure raw simply as a pass catcher, that I think there's nothing wrong with manufacturing in there. He showed on those fly sweeps alone that he can be very effective. They gave him some direct snaps on the pitch plays out wide. I think he got a 10-yard run in one of the games doing that. So I think that's the point of giving him the contract like you have, is that he gives you 3 different points as far as potential value. And not that you're going to make him a running back 1 or 2 or 3, but that, can I give this guy 30 running back carries over the course of the year, Brendan? And that can equate out to a couple hundred yards, and that can help out the rushing offense to it. Yeah, it's not going to like make us now completely successful as a rushing attack because we got those 200 yards. But if what we're talking about doing here is we're kind of like, we're going to take a little bit from here and we need some from there and we need some from here. And then and it's going to be like, okay, the sum total of all of these guys' contribution is going to be more than just having the one guy that's 1,500 yards, right? That's going to be, you can see that's probably going to be more of the ideal, at least this upcoming season, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. I just wouldn't expect it to happen like 15 times a game. He's not Debo. We're not going to use him like Debo Samuel. So no. I don't want to say, oh, we don't need a running back because we have Shaheed. Like, I don't want to fall into that trap, but it can help.
No. Yeah, it helps, but definitely not that, and definitely not the Debo level. We're talking about maybe 1 carry a game, maybe 2, depending on what you're able to do as far as targeting him within the context of the offense, just naturally. But thank you, Banker. Appreciate you for that. Folks, really appreciate all of you guys for tuning on in today. If you could do me this favor and hit that like button, whether you're watching on Seahawks Brendan's side or here at the Hawks Nest as well. Sub up on either side, either over there to Seahawks Brendan Nelson, over here to the Hawks Nest. Either way, we do this show once a week here through most of the year. We've got draft coverage is going to continue here over the next couple of weeks as we look at these real given individual positional groups. We've got, of course, corner we're going to be taking a look at. Safety position we'll be taking a look at. We got it to take a look, I think, as well as the edge group, no doubt about that. So we're going to be kind of going in and trying to stay laser locked in on the positions that we think are going to be really targeted in this draft and are of the utmost importance to the Seattle Seahawks. And so really, really, really do appreciate you doing this, Brendan, throughout this offseason as we keep going. And we'll keep this going with you guys, tapping in on this draft. And yes, we know we battered on this draft quite a bit in saying that we don't feel like it's as strong as some recent years' draft, but there is value to find. And let's not forget the Seattle Seahawks, Brendan, don't exactly have to club about 15 different needs in this draft, do they? They can snipe in on a couple of specific things.
They've done a pretty good job keeping it narrow.
They really have. They really have. And with the value pieces they've added, what you've done, you've not pushed yourself right now as we walk in this draft, Brendan. I think they've set the stage pretty well, though. You don't necessarily feel like you absolutely have to pick for need at any given point. I mean, might they pick a running back early? Yeah. Do they have to necessarily pick a running back early? Not necessarily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it would be tricky if you come out of the draft with no help at running back, I will admit. But at the same time, I mean, there are alternative paths to getting help at running back that aren't just the draft, and I think we should keep that in mind.
Amen. Amen. John's always got a backup plan. He always says. So thank you guys again for watching today. We will be back. I'll be back here soon, a little bit later on today with the show. But until then, please don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.